down. No?
Down, down, no, no, no,
Ah,
no,
my
no.
ears.
What was that?
Oh, my ears.
Oh, it was
My
loud.
ears are bleeding.
Oh, it's because it's so beautiful, right?
Yeah. That's what happens when I hear something beautiful. My ears start bleeding.
That's weird. That's really weird.
Yeah.
You should get that checked out.
Yeah. I always have to have tissues around when Ariana Grande is going off.
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
You got something significant in your teeth.
Is it? Yeah, let's see. Oh, yeah, I see it.
You got like a poppy seed there?
Yeah, chia seed. Chia.
I think our cold opens are the best in the business. Let me make it a little bit better right now and let you know what I'm dealing with.
Yeah. Oh, you dealing with some congestion? Dealing with some sweet farmer stand. Sorry, I let you go.
Is my neck?
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh,
the neck.
Man, it's getting so bad. I was only focusing on my dome, and I had my hat on, and I was out painting lines for the last 4 hours.
Painting lines.
7 a.m. I was out there painting lines for my lacrosse team because we have a game this afternoon, and I guess it falls on the coach to figure that out. So one of my really good friends, Bill, who had some kids on the team last year, helped me out. It took about 3.5 to 4 hours to do.
Oh my God! You and Bill out there just painting lines on the lawn.
You have no idea. There's so many lines. It's like so hard to know where to start, and you have to use string and like the little rolly thing.
Yeah, is this the first time you ever done something like that?
Oh yeah. So the natural inclination is like, oh no, like I'm gonna mess this up. Like I don't even want to start. And and especially because I've been sick, I haven't been sleeping well. I got 4 hours of sleep last night. I had like 3 coughing fits during those like 4 or 5 hours because you get that tickle in your throat.
Are you doing that post-nasal drip when like you lay down and it like hits the back of your throat, and it feels like you're like itchy throat type of deal?
Yeah, a little bit of like that itchy throat, but it's not as much down here. It's definitely a sinus infection, but I kind of quote unquote took my medicine. I didn't, so I think I started coming down with it on early Monday morning as I left for travel, and then it hit me like a brick on Monday night. I had like kind of a feverish feeling, chills, like just really, really pounding kind of sensation through my sinuses and that kind of stuff. But one thing that I'll give a tip to you, and this is a tip to myself, sometimes I confuse fever with dehydration. Even though I was drinking a ton of water, I wasn't like replenishing electrolytes, and I wasn't having sugar, so I was probably just completely flushing myself out. Like I was peeing, basically water, and every like 30 minutes I had to pee, but I wasn't taking in sugar and electrolytes.
So you think that was the issue, and then once you got some like Gatorade in you,
well,
you were
yeah,
better?
I drank like 8 ounces of apple juice at like 2 a.m. and I was like, oh my God, my head feels so much better. You know what I mean? You ever have that like feeling of here?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So why don't you give me and all of the listeners out there, where'd you go, Sean?
It's not your business.
It was your birthday. It was your birthday last week, right?
My girlfriend Lauren, who's an amazing woman, and I love her very much. And we've been dating since October. And she, about a month ago, knew that my birthday was coming up, and she said, "Listen, are you in for a trip for your birthday?" And she's very well traveled. She almost has a full passport book. She's been to China, Europe.
Whoa.
She's been all over the place. And by the way, like alone. She went to China alone. She went to Iceland alone. Like, to get the real experience. So she's definitely a world traveler, whereas I'm a very much a homebody relative, right?
Well, you guys sound like a match because you don't really have friends. I was kidding. That was mean.
What are those ridiculous glasses you were wearing?
They're my hater shades. Keep them off from all the haters out there.
The only hater is the one you see in the mirror, okay? Once you take care of that hater. All right, we'll go back to your shades in a second because I just can't take my eyes off you. All right, so she says, okay, then are you like, it was also almost like a test of the relationship and who I am, like, so she can, but she knows who I am. We've known each other for like 6 or 7 years. So I was like, yeah, I trust you. Like, I know that we're gonna go somewhere where it's appropriate, and I'm like, all right, I have these dates that are available. Like, let's make it work, and it fell into perfectly. So she booked everything, she contacted everybody, and we ended up going to Belize. And Belize is a country that's located in Central America. It is at the end of Mexico, let's say, in between Guatemala and Honduras. So here's Mexico, right? Mm-hmm. Here is Guatemala, kind of here.
Okay.
Here's Belize, and then there's like Honduras over up here.
Okay.
So it is on the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay.
In the Atlantic kind of deal. It is known for beautiful beaches, like those big holes, like the like deep dive. You know, when people go for like world record dives.
Okay.
Like free dives.
Uh-huh.
Those are the type of, they go to these holes. That's where they go and they form because the bedrock is limestone. And what happens with limestone, it's porous and water continues to flow through it over time. And then you get sinkholes.
Okay.
And I think I forgot what they call them.
Cenotes?
Cenotes, yes.
Yes.
I was going to say zapatos, but those are shoes. Anyway, so cenotes, and you get these enormous sinkholes. And they also have hundreds of caves throughout Belize as well. And I'll give you the fifth grade geography report of Belize. Belize gained its independence in 1981, I believe, from the British. They were a British colony. So they are an English-speaking colony.
Oh, cool.
So it's nice. So if you're an American coming there, they all speak English for the most part. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the other language that they speak is Spanish because of Mexico. Some of them actually speak native, like not Mayan, but like native, like Central
American.
Yeah. Yep. And you probably listen to the Joe Rogan podcast. So they're like, Spanish is not a native language there, which you kind of have to think about for a second. And then they speak like a British Creole, which is just basically like slang. It's like over there is like over there. It's like little like things like that. It's like man, like that kind of thing. So
you went to Jamaica?
Exactly. That's what it sounds like. They have a Jamaican twang, but speak Spanish.
Okay, cool.
You know what I mean? And English. Yeah. So like, I was like, sounds so peculiar. Like it's like a Spanish guy trying to mimic a Jamaican guy. For some of them, it depends, like obviously the age of the person, but that's kind of how it is. So anyway, it's a relatively young country. So it's only like 40 years, like less than 40 years old in terms of independence.
Okay.
Here's some cool things about it, though. So there's about 350,000 people. The population isn't necessarily growing. The number one economy, what it drives the economy is tourism.
Right.
So lots of people are based off of the tourism. So you have lots of tour guides. You have fishermen and you have taxi drivers and you have all sorts of stuff, but obviously tourism is a very big part of it. They have one prison in the entire country. You can drive by it and go to the gift shop there and get yourself some rusty handcuffs. There are like three main ecosystems of the country. There is the coast, which is obviously beaches and that kind of stuff, and the ocean. Then it goes, and by the way, there's islands all around there, like keys, so to speak, and some of them are private, and you can just go there and stay as a resort. Then they have a savanna where nothing really grows, and then in between the savanna is in between the coast and the jungle, and then the jungle is where everything grows. And they have an enormous preserve. I think 70% of all of their land in the country is preserved. So you can't just come in and start deforesting or knocking things down or building shit. You have to go through the government to do it. So obviously it prevents a lot of progress in some ways, but it also preserves the beauty of the country, which again is great. So
especially if your number one economic incentive is tourism.
Exactly.
You don't want to blow your economic why people go there.
And the thing I don't believe there's taxes for anybody who makes under $24,000 a year. The median income is around 12,500 a year. So most people aren't paying taxes, but they do have a sales tax of like 12 to 13%. Okay. But if you're making over 24,000 a year, you're going to pay tax. So most of the tax money goes to repairs of roads. Obviously, being a tourist country, you need to repair the roads so that people can get to and from the coast and the jungle. But you find very quickly that most of the roads really don't exist, especially when you get into the jungle. So they have, where like Guard Hill Road is, remember in Bedford? Yeah. Imagine it on its worst day, and that's what the better roads are in some of the area. So they call it a massage when you go to places. They're like, you get a free massage because you're fucking bouncing around in the seat, right? Yeah. So we fly into the Belize, and you obviously have to go through customs, which is a very small airport. And this is the first time I ever walked off a plane downstairs. So it was pretty cool. So you get into the tarmac, you go and you do customs. And
what do you mean walked off a plane downstairs? What does that mean? I'm confused.
So what do you usually do when you get off a plane?
Get off a plane. I go get my bag from like the carousel.
Okay, is that getting off the plane, or is that after you've gotten off the plane?
After I've gotten off the plane.
So when you get off the plane, how do you get off the plane?
Walk out of the. I don't know. Walk out of the door.
Walk out of the door. Do you go down a set of stairs, or do you go like across to get to
go across like through a corridor?
Yeah, exactly. So there's like a entrance to the airport through there. When you get off in their airport, you climb downstairs and you're on the tarmac.
Oh, what? Okay, yeah. I got what you're saying.
Like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, how he has to at the end, he drives onto the tarmac and then just gets on the plane.
Yes, or like in Liar Liar.
Exactly. Yeah, more like that. Yes. So there's a set of stairs.
So you walk out of the plane, go down a set of stairs,
and then you walk into the airport.
Oh,
and I know this it's so funny that you kind of like are unaware of that, and most likely was unaware of that until recently. But I know there's probably a lot of people saying this right now. Like, are these guys mentally like ridiculous or dum-dums? Yes. Well, I've never internationally traveled to something so small before. Have you?
No. I've only internationally traveled twice. Anyway, so.
Well, Canada was one of them. Where else did you go?
I went to France.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so obviously that's a big airport. Anyway.
Yeah, I went. Yeah.
So in Iceland, you also went to as well, which is probably a nicer airport. Anyway, I digress. So we get picked up by this great guy named Wilton. He's in his early 20s. He has a license in tourism, but he also works for the resort that we were staying at called what is Spanish for butterfly?
Spanish.
Mariposa. You weren't even close, Tally. Mariposa. It's called the Mariposa Lodge, and it's I believe it's located in Saint Ignacio Lodge, and Mariposa Lodge in Saint Ignacio.
So Wilton's dropping you off at the Mariposa
or Saint Augustine. Mariposa Lodge. No, okay. Anyway, sorry, Wilton. He's going to drive us from the airport to the lodge because he works for the lodge. And he's also has a license in tourism. So as we're driving along, he could point out things. He points out this and that. And we go for lunch on the way because it's like, it breaks up a 2-hour drive. So we stop off at this place called Cheers. And it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek thing because it's like, Cheers, like the bar in the sitcom.
Yeah.
But it's just like a kind of a local dive thing on one of the long highways. And by the way, a highway is just a 2-lane road.
Right.
Or a 1-lane, really. Okay. Anyway, so that's where we sit down and we learn a little bit more about kind of things. And we have a meal and I'm like, oh man, I'm scared. Like, I don't want to eat. I got this Mexico vibe. Like, I'm going to drink the water. I'm going to have diarrhea. Yeah. So that's one of the first things I asked him. Like, yo, is the water good here? He goes, yeah, water's fine. Like, no big deal. Obviously that we have bottled water and they have a local bottled water. And then I'm like, okay, cool. And they're like, and also they have this stuff, Belican beer. It's Belize's beer, best beer in the world. And if you got off the plane, you saw that it's bottled right next to the airport. I was like, okay, cool. So now I'm starting to kind of warm up a little bit. I'm like, so what's the deal with like, agriculture here? Like everything is grown on the island. We have everything you can imagine. The only thing that we can't grow here is like grapes because it's a little too hot. But they grow watermelons, oranges. Like the oranges they grow, that's what goes into like Tropicana orange juice. Oranges, they grow their own sunflowers, soybeans, corn, any wheat, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But they grow everything there, and then all the meat is grown on the island too. They do mostly cattle and chickens, so they eat tons of chicken because everybody has chickens. But all those animals can live on the island because it never gets too cold. So the cool thing is like you don't need barns really. The only time
chickens flying around.
They're just pecking around, and they just kind of like have them a little thing. They're all pastured, like so you don't need to ask for grass-fed anything. Everything is grown there on the island. They don't use anything weird. They don't have, and the other cool thing is that they don't really have industrial farming because they're like too poor of a country,
right?
So it's all done by hand. So it's like hard work and that kind of stuff. So everything we ate was basically organic and locally grown.
Sweet.
It's really, really cool. Yeah. And something that we as we're driving along, we see a farm. And I'm like, that farm doesn't look like the rest of like what this looks like. I'm like, what's that all about? They go, oh, that's a Mennonite farm.
Oh, like
you guys got Amish and Mennonites here? And they're like, yeah, we do. So I'm like, how did they get here? He goes, well, they started out in Pennsylvania, obviously. And then they started migrating down toward Mexico. And then once they got to Mexico, they started going further south and they ended up in Belize. And they have pretty much a meritocracy in Belize. So there's not like too much of a class system. If you're pretty much the same economic status, it doesn't matter. But meritocracy in the sense that like if you have worth, you're accepted. And what they found was such a poor country, it's really, really useful to have people and like certain cultures like Mennonites because
they're gonna
go ahead.
I was gonna say they're gonna build shit and they're gonna farm,
but they do it without equipment.
Oh,
so they don't have they don't need money. They just do it. They have they know they've been doing it for hundreds of years, so they know how to raise a barn without using like
machinery.
Yeah. So it's a perfect match for them because they're like, oh, can you teach us how to grow wheat here? They're like, sure.
Oh, shit.
You know what I mean? Can you teach us irrigation without having to use these enormous, backhoes and stuff like that?
So the Mennonites were teaching the Belize how to essentially farm?
In some ways, yeah. Like how to do it sustainably and on a larger scale so that they can feed more people and they do it without the equipment.
Whoa.
Fascinating, right?
And
really you'll know, and a lot of the stuff. So basically, each weekend there's a farmers market where everybody comes down and everybody will bring their crops in and they'll buy and sell and that kind of stuff, meat and all those things. And then, for instance, like the Mariposa Lodge, they'll send their chefs down. They'll buy stuff for the week and then they create their menu. So it's all done that way.
Nice.
And
so,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And so the interesting thing is I mean, I've been talking for a while. I'm like, yo, I wonder if it's even possible for a society to run locally and that kind of thing. Well, in a country that has 350,000 people, and it's about roughly the size of Massachusetts, they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, that being said, they have the climate and the ecology to do it, right?
To support it, yeah.
Exactly. So that also means that they don't allow industrialization on a grand scale. They don't allow exploitation of the land because that basically takes away for the ability for the people to grow their own food.
Right.
Right? So you can grow your own food there. There's no regulations against that. You could just have a little farm in your backyard, chickens, cow, pigs if you wanted to, but mostly chicken and cow is what I saw. Sheep is another one.
So if I want to go off the grid, Belize would be a good spot.
Excellent. Yeah, and you can get solar panels if you wanted to. The thing is that building supplies are going to be the hardest thing to get because they don't do a lot of trade. Right? They're not they're not like Mexico where they're importing and exporting, billions of dollars worth of goods. I can't imagine how much they trade, but they don't have an enormous port where they're doing that. So everything's kind of done on the island. But that leads to a lot of resourcefulness and a lot of repairmen and a lot of that kind of stuff. And then like little underground trade things, like people will be getting like iPhones in from the United States and then selling them there. You know what I mean? So like there's a lot of resourcefulness that's going on the island.
So what'd you guys do?
So once we got to the lodge, we found out that we're basically staying in the jungle, and it's this like resort is kind of carved out of the jungle. So the thing with the jungle is if you leave it for about 2 weeks, your resort becomes the jungle, right? Because it grows so quickly and so thick, right? So we got to the lodge. We just like kind of hang out on our back porch there and just kind of like look into the jungle, and we do a little walk, and there's hikes and all that kind of stuff. There's a pool at the resort. And this is like a legit resort. Like I was thinking, oh man, this is going to be some kind of like Airbnb and some crazy, jungle thing. It's unbelievable. It's like a little slice of heaven. So all the food is made there. So we have like a designed dinner there. You come for dinner. You say, okay, we're going to want to do dinner at 6:30. So we go to the dining hall, like little lodge, and we did dinner. And again, it's an unbelievable meal. And then the next morning we get up and we go to our first excursion of the weekend, where we go to somewhere called Caracol. And Caracol is a Mayan ruins. So the Mayans, it really had a huge populace in Central America. Obviously, if you go further north, you have the Aztecs, and even further north than that, you have like American Indians. So the Mayans ruled that area for over 500, 600, 700 years. I'm not 100% sure, but like up to maybe 1000 AD or 900 AD, and all the way basically to the start of civilization, right? They came from North America, or from Asia eventually, over the ice bridge, and then came down, and then there were American Indians, and then came further south, and then they were Aztecs, and then came further south, and they ended up being Mayans. And then even further south than that, they would go to South America. And there's some people that even say that they went from Africa to South America. Like there's certain tribes, they say that they could have actually boated from like island to island across the Atlantic, but there's not a huge amount of
evidence.
Yeah, but they say it's possible. In a similar way, how like people from like the Polynesians and like the Southeast Asians made it to Australia.
Yeah.
You're like, how the hell could that be possible? Like just island to island, and over hundreds and hundreds of years, they just populated those places because of resources.
Yeah. Just watch the movie Moana, you'll see.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because when you watch, you're like, I guess it is possible. Like you don't need an enormous ship to get there. And even if you did have like something like the Vikings, like how much better is that than like something that you can really actually maneuver and like accessibility, right?
Yeah.
Rather than something that's big and heavy and might tip over. So again, there's positives and negatives. It's like the Mongols fighting people in armor. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, so Caracol is it was at its peak around like 400, 500 AD, and it's the actual Caracol like city was, I think it's like 10 square miles or something like that, and most of it is still buried. It's like 90% of it is still buried under the jungle. So basically in 1968 there was a person exploring the jungle, and they were just like came upon these mounds of just dirt. And I'm like, this looks weird. Let's kind of explore what's underneath these. And it turns out these enormous temples underneath them.
Oh, shit.
And then they contacted universities and that kind of stuff, and they've been excavating it ever since. But the problem is with excavation is that as soon as you excavate something, the jungle is going to want to swallow it back up.
Ooh,
so there's the tallest building is a temple that's 14 stories tall.
Whoa.
And if you go to the top of it, you can see for miles in every direction.
And they couldn't see it at one point. It was just buried by jungle?
Exactly. Well, you can see that it's just a big hill, and you're like, why the hell is there a hill here? Or there's like rocks and stuff around the hill that of like remnants of a wall. But like, yo, what? They just kind of just like came upon it, and they were just like, all right, let's just explore a little bit more. And they found like, oh my God, this is an enormous temple.
Shit.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Crazy.
So obviously, they told us all about Mayans and that kind of stuff, and how the culture, and there was, there was a civilization in Guatemala, and they used to fight, then battle, and that kind of stuff. And they kind of told us how that would work. And you could see that at the top of the temple, you can see in Guatemala and how much of an advantage that would be to build a temple. So you can basically see all over all of what you rule.
Wow.
And they had roads and intricate cities and that kind of stuff. And there was peasants, and then there was, workers, and then the working class, and then there was the elites, and then there was royalty. And all of this is going on, 1,500 to 2,000 years ago. And all of this is preserved under earth. The
Whoa.
jungle basically preserved it.
Yeah.
So rather than being worn away by the water, so to speak, like rain and stuff like that.
Right, erosion. It was preserved.
It preserves
it
by the earth.
The jungle shell.
Jungle shell, yeah. So the cool part about it is that this 14-story building continues to be the tallest structure in all of Belize. So it's
That's crazy.
Really cool. And you have to do basically like Russian step-ups to get up these steps, because the steps themselves are about 12 inches, and then the height of it is about 18 inches.
Oh shit!
So it's a legit workout to get up to the top of it. But
did you load up your backpack and get after it? Your sinus infection?
I didn't need to. No, I didn't get my sinus infection until I left, so that was good.
Oh, perfect. Nice.
Anyway, so we explored all around this little city, and on the way there, we went to somewhere called the Rio Frio Cave, which is just exploring one of the many caves but an easily accessible cave in Belize. Mm-hmm. You've been to Grand Central Station before, Tyler, right?
Yes, sir.
And you see the extravagance of that beautiful ceiling, pretty much, right?
Oh, God,
imagine something twice as high as that.
Whoa!
This magnificent cave that's built, and really what it is like when you think about what a cave is, it's literally water flowing through rock for millions of years.
Yeah.
That's all that is. It's just
that's what the Grand Canyon is.
And then a million years, and then a million, and it just builds this hole. And then some things fall through, but the ceiling itself is still, let's say 100 feet thick, but the room itself is like 60 feet thick or 60 feet open. You know what I mean?
Right. Or
100 feet open, whatever.
Well, yeah, it's crazy to think that's what the Grand Canyon was. It was just.
It's a good point.
Yeah, it was a big fucking rock, and then the Colorado River is like, bitch, watch me.
But I guess that could be a take-home motivation here, just because you think you're small doesn't mean that you can't be persistent, right? Mm-hmm. And persistence wins over time. Okay. Anyway, so after we did,
I'm just waiting for you to complete the end of the trip. So how did it finish out?
Rio Frio Cave. Then we went to Caracol, and then on the way back, we went to these waterfalls where we got to swim in like this natural pool with these beautiful waterfalls that were about 30 feet high. And then that was pretty much the end of the first day. The second day, we went to something called the ATM Caves. And don't you fill in the letters. Okay. Anyway. So it was about an hour and 40-minute drive to the caves. And again, one of the reasons why Belize tends to be something that tourists don't always flock to, because you have to earn your way to get there.
Oh, shit.
You know what I mean? It's a rough little ride to get there. So it's a 2-hour ride from the airport, and then an hour and 45-minute ride from your resort. And it's bumpy roads, and it's little vans that they're not like you're taking like an ATV there or some kind of like a Hummer. You're taking a van.
It wasn't the most comfortable.
No, but it made it more worthwhile. And because you're looking at the scenery and you're hearing what the drivers are talking about and or the tour guides, it's worthwhile. It's not like you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs. I wasn't bored whatsoever.
Right.
So the lead up to it, we went through the Mennonite farms, and they grow trees there also that are harvested and used for things like cabinets and tables and that kind of stuff. So there's a couple cool trees they found there that grow there that the Chinese brought over, and there's Chinese immigrants there as well. It's called teak, T-E-A-K, teak, and they also have wild mahogany there that grows. And mahogany, as you know from...
Very distinguished.
Yes, mahogany. It smells like rich mahogany. Mahogany is a very, very valuable resource, and loggers for many years would use that or be able to sell that. And they grow it there. So it takes, they say, I think 60 years to have for a mahogany tree to fully develop. Yeah. So there's rows and rows and rows of mahogany trees and that kind of stuff that they grow there, along with all their agriculture and that kind of stuff. So as we're leading up to the caves, that's kind of what we're looking at and seeing these beautiful fields and that kind of stuff. And even in those fields, we see mounds, and these mounds are Mayan ruins.
Cool. Yeah. Whoa.
So we get to the caves, or we get to the parking lot. This is where we meet our guide. And these guides, they're cave guides. You have to have a license. There's 27 of them in all of Belize.
Okay.
So 27 badasses that go through this course and go through training and are allowed to be licensed and in Belize. And it's probably one of the highest paying jobs in all of Belize that are licensed, because it's also it's such an integral part of the tourist economy. And it's something that a lot of people want to do, and you need a guide to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. And there's only 27 of them. So imagine there was only allowed 27 CrossFit coaches in the country, right? You'd be a very high demand person. Sure. So these guys will make $40 a person anytime that they bring someone into the caves. Now we had 8 people in our group. Mm-hmm. So 8 people, and you do 1 to 2 tours. What was that?
$320.
Yeah, and for a Belizean to make $320 in a day, that's what a lot of them will make like in a week, right? And they'll do this consistently. So again, very, very, good position to be in. So the start of this whole thing, we kind of get a rundown, like, okay, you're going to listen to your guide, listen to me, and we put a life vest on and a helmet with a light on it. And the first thing we do is they give us a bottle of water. They go, okay, let's go. And you have to wade across a river. So there's a rope that goes across, and you're literally pulling yourself across. Your feet can't hit the bottom, and you have to pull yourself across. And there's a bunch of like people that do this, groups of 8, obviously, but that's the start of it. And then you get to the other side, and you start hiking. A nice little path, easy. But then you have to go across another river, and then hike a little bit, and then go across another little river. And then we get to the start of the cave. And the start of the cave is, probably about 10 feet deep of water. So you jump in and you swim across this into the cave, and you put your little helmet light on, and now you're climbing and wading through water that's between knee deep and chest deep water. And there's rocks on the bottom that could, like, basically they call them shin splitters.
Oh shit.
And you have to kind of communicate with everybody behind you, and you have lights, and there's no light in there. It's just your helmet lamp. And you hike through this kind of situation, like literally like a crack this big. You have to like put your neck through to get through. So it's very claustrophobic. It's legit. It's like, imagine Goonies or like Indiana Jones, legit that. And the guide's just like, all right, let's do it. Let's go. Like, there's no way that this would be able to be done in the United States. Like, we are so litigious about the way we do things. There's no way this would be allowed to be done, right? So we hike for 45 minutes back into this cave, and then we get to this big rock. They're like, okay, this is where we climb. So you've got to get your footing. You've got to climb up a boulder that's jagged. Like, by the way, if you fall on any of this stuff, you're breaking something, or you're getting banged up, because it's all jagged rock. It's not like you know what I mean? Like if you've ever been to like a wading pool and you're like, oh, rocks, and you like slide a little bit and you just bust your shit. Anyway, so we climb up this boulder that's about 10 feet high, and that gets us to a ledge. And then once we're on that ledge, we kind of walk back, and then we take our shoes off, and then we enter another room. And the room was obviously just another layer of a cave. And at this point, we're about a mile back into the cave. And now we get to see what is actually going on. And we see that they show us pottery. And the pottery is calcified to the ground, and it's over 1,400 years old. And it's been there since the Mayans were there. They only found this like recently.
Wow.
Right? So it's literally like if you took a snapshot in time and you went and saw it again.
Oh shit.
Like a time capsule.
Yeah,
and that's just the start. So then we go into the next room, and they're describing what goes on there, and everything is basically implanted into the ground. So it looks like a pot that someone put there, like today, but it's just calcified there, because that's just the way the cave grows. It's basically sweating limestone and all the calcium carbonate, and it just makes everything bone, and it just stays there.
Whoa.
So now there's this enormous room that we're in, like the size of Grand Central Station, that has all sorts of pottery and artifacts around, and remnants of bone and burials and that kind of stuff, and human sacrifices. And they're telling about how this would happen. And most of these are royalties. Have you ever heard of the Star Child?
No.
It's like this skeleton, this skull that they found. And they kind of figured out that what they would do is, like, to show that someone was an elite, they would take a board to the front of a baby's head, and they would board the head so that the skull expanded this way.
Weird.
Kind of like foot binding.
Foot binding, but for a skull?
Yeah, skull binding. So as soon as you looked at somebody that have a flat forehead, they would realize, okay, this is an elite.
Royalty. Whoa.
Royalty. Yeah, they would do that to some of to the babies. Anyway, so you go further and further back, and eventually we get to a fully preserved like skeleton that's basically implanted into the ground because it's all calcified over. And it was like a teenage boy, and it's a skeleton of, someone who was in that cave 1,500 years ago.
Whoa! And did this kid, was he royalty because he had a flat head, or
they really don't? They're not sure. He didn't have a flat head, but they weren't sure like who this is or whatever because they don't really touch any of it because they feel like, you know what? Rather than us like try to excavate it and ruin everything, let's just leave it and allow people to appreciate this living museum, so to speak.
Whoa!
So once we got there, we came back out. It's about
how long does this whole thing take?
It was like 4 or 5 hours.
Wow.
Of hiking and the whole thing, right? 4 hours. Anyway,
stopping for snacks?
On the way back out was cool because we all got in a line. So you could imagine this happening. Like, imagine you were a Mayan, 200, 300 AD. You got your little torch that's got some sap on it. You have no shoes, maybe a loincloth, and maybe some like stuff you fabricated out of some jungle like materials. And you're going into a pitch black cave in 10 feet deep of water with your torch, maybe with some friends, and you're just exploring this cave system alone. You slip, you die. And you're just kind of screwing around. Again, obviously they're a lot more resourceful probably back then, but this is what they would do. So we get to a point on the way back out. We're in like this corridor area with like waist deep water. So we're like, all right, everybody turn your lamps off. This is what the guide says. So now everybody put your hands on each other's shoulders. Let's start walking forward. And then he takes his hand and he splashes the water to the right. And he's like, listen, and you hear it hit the wall. He goes, okay, now to the left. And it took a little longer and it sounded a little further away. Meanwhile, you can't see anything. If you close your eyes, open your eyes, you don't know the difference. So you can like basically sonar your way into the middle of the cave.
Cool. Just by splashing the water?
Yep. And he goes, if this happens, like if this is what they would have to do to navigate through the tunnel if their torches went out. Yeah. Now, the worst thing that would happen is if you fell down and you got disoriented. If you fell down and got disoriented, that's basically it. They say basically what you would want to do is just stay calm and just wait for someone to get you. Because there's no point really in trying to navigate your way out because you're probably just going to get further and further into the cave or get more and more lost.
Oh my God. That sounds terrifying.
It's yeah. So at that moment, like, damn, that would suck so bad. Right.
Then you slipped.
Yeah. That you slipped or that your torch went out or your batteries went out in your lamp, whatever. Right. You still there, T?
I'm here.
Okay. So, we got out, they had a lunch prepared for us and we went and like picked oranges and all that kind of stuff. And, and like, it was legit, like great lunch and all that kind of stuff. And then we went back to the lodge and, had dinner and relaxed for the last evening and then flew back the following day and said goodbye to everybody. And it was a really, really cool experience. Obviously it was only like 3 nights that we stayed there: Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. But it was a really, really cool experience. That was my first like real getting out of the United States and getting out of like Western ways in a little bit more. I mean, obviously in a more controlled way. I didn't go to like the middle of Siberia or something like that. Obviously we had certain comforts, but it's a good kind of
totally different culture.
Transition into new cultures, into new ways of living.
Had you ever done any type of trip like that before where you left the country? Or anything like that?
Nope.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. Definitely not something where like, oh, I need to go get something from Walgreens. Like they don't have that.
You can ask our Mennonite friends to help you out, but
yeah, and a lot of it is like is learning how to like live off the jungle. There's like a jungle remedy. Like one of the things that the guy said, because he's a jungle trained, one of our guides, Wilton, he goes, the jungle has something that will hurt you and something that will also take that hurt away.
Oh, so if you get stung by a scorpion, there's probably some like tree or some fruit that you can rub on your scorpion wound and you'll be okay.
Yeah, or more precisely, there is a tree that's called a give and take. and it looks like a porcupine. And if you get stuck by it, it's terribly painful. But if you take the sap or use the leaves and put it in the wound, it takes away the pain.
Exactly the same as I was saying.
Yes, like a scorpion, yes. But they have tarantula that are big as your hand there.
Oh, what did you see? Any cool wildlife or any cool animals?
Howler monkeys.
Whoa!
I heard them howl.
You saw them, or you heard them howling?
I saw them, and then later on we heard them howling.
Whoa!
And it sounds like something like out of King Kong.
Whoa!
Like it doesn't sound like a ooh. It's a roar. It's like, and you're like, what was that animal? And you realize it's like a 3-pound monkey. So yeah, that was the trip. But some cool, like, obviously one of the cool things that I did through this trip is I didn't have my cell phone on the entire time. I had my camera on my cell phone, but I had my airplane mode on, so I didn't have. Basically, when I got to the airport or got on the plane, that was it. It was on airplane mode from Friday at 11 until I got back Monday afternoon. That's the longest I haven't had my cell phone on since I had a cell phone.
That's insane.
Yep.
What were some big takeaways for you in terms of how did it make you feel?
Great question, because obviously I took Instagram off my phone and that kind of stuff, so I was kind of weaning my way off it anyway. But
yeah, I
think the habitual picking up of your phone is one of those things that happens. Like, oh, I'm just gonna pick up my phone. Like, it doesn't do anything.
Right.
Like you literally can't do anything with that phone.
Right.
It's worthless to
email.
You.
Yeah.
Well, like I can't even do that. And by the way, there was Wi-Fi at the resort, but I chose not to put the Wi-Fi on my phone.
Smart.
You know what I mean? I was just like, you know what, let's get it. But it wasn't bad, honestly. I felt like I'm in a good place where I have enough balance to know, like, I don't need it, you know?
Yeah. Well, also, did it feel, I guess, like a weight off your shoulders in a way? Or did it feel like it allowed you to be and experience what you're experiencing more fully? And blow your nose more fully?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Let me just blow my nose.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it did. For me, it was less of the cell phone and more of like, yo, I feel this a little bit of. For me, when things get overwhelming, or there are new sensations in my life, I don't get overwhelmed. I don't get like anxious. I don't get overly excited. I almost disconnect. That's my default. It's just to be like, bzz, like flatline. Like, all right, cool. It's like, isn't that the most amazing place? I'm like, yeah, I mean, conceptually I get that, but I'm like, I don't feel something. Do you get that?
If something's amazing, then can I feel it?
Yeah. Like when you went to the Grand Canyon, were you like, did it like take your breath away?
It was hard. It's hard to really, like, when you look at it, it's interesting because in the moment you're looking at it and it almost felt like I was still looking at a picture. It was weird. It's like I'm not feeling and experiencing it. I'm not like diving into the Colorado River. I'm just looking at this thing and it's very challenging to like take it all in a way.
It doesn't compute with our puny little brains.
I know, yeah, 100%. So it's just like it is that awe experience, but it's still, because you can't touch it because you can't feel it, and just really just looking at it. It was much cooler than looking at a picture, but still there's a bridge between like that, like what you feel the experience should be and what it actually is.
That's a great point. Have you ever had an experience where something took your breath away?
Like where I looked at it and I was just like, holy shit.
Not even necessarily holy shit, but like you were speechless and you felt the sensation in your chest where you're like, love.
Let me think about it. I imagine yes. But like in my mind, I'm like wanting to go to like just recent trips I've taken, because like I went to Yellowstone and I went to Iceland and I went to France. So like I'm trying to like look through those files and be like, anything in here that was breathtaking. But I think if I were to, man, something recently. Sometimes there's some pretty fucking epic sunsets. This is just like recently in my mind, just pretty epic sunsets coming home like over the water. So I live in Brooklyn Bridge, or excuse me, I live in Brooklyn Heights, which, you know, overlooks the water and you see the city, and then there's the Statue of Liberty. And sometimes you're walking home, and if the sunset hits just right, it's pretty fucking spectacular. So yeah, I imagine in those moments, it's like I'm looking at it. It's like that feeling of openness and unable to express how beautiful it is. And maybe that is like a breath away moment, but I guess it's what your definition of a breakaway, of a take your breath away moment really truly is.
Well, I think if we define it a little bit more, it's almost like you go, oh, like
Yeah.
it almost like pains you to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I feel I am able to have those moments, and
Yeah.
just things that come into my mind is just recently, like coming home and the sunset and the Statue of Liberty, and you're just looking at it, you're just like, what the fuck? How are these colors possible?
Yeah. When I did some medicinal training, I call it, like a couple, like I think in November, I was actually watching. Did you watch the OA on Netflix?
Yeah, sure did.
So there's that scene where she goes, and by the way, I was doing medicinal training during this, so I was, yeah, so take that in mind. Where she's standing at the Statue of Liberty, and then she's like looking at it, and it's this huge statue, and then it's again, like you said, like it's a sunset over the river. And I started crying watching that. And there was a couple times in my life where, especially after like being stripped down through like therapeutic sessions, like in therapy, where like I really had a release, and then I looked at the sun. I'm like, oh my god, like this is what they mean by like being awestruck, right? When you really are like stripped of your armor, so to speak, and you are just exposed. Those are the times when you are allowed to have those moments.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what allows me to look at certain things within my life and question the validity and question the value of it. Like, is it valuable? How valuable is it to you to be so consistent and be so like level that something like that, you'll never be able to feel awestruck by something.
Right. Like you're so on point with keeping your emotions in check.
Exactly.
That you can't allow yourself to have that type of experience.
You can conceptualize and be like, oh, that looks really beautiful. But how many times in your life have you looked at something and went,
yeah.
And you're like, you can't look away, you can't move, but you're just like, and honestly, it brings tears to my eyes. That's my, like, it evokes such emotion for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Now I'm thinking, one of my upstate, and just being out there at night, and you can see the Milky Way. Fucking so cool.
Where was that?
Look it up. And so this is upstate New York.
Oh yeah.
He's got a farm in Kingston, and in the Hudson Valley, and you're out at night, and you're on like this fresh green grass, summer night, beautiful, and you're looking up at all these stars, and you see the Milky Way too, and you're just like, whoa, this is fucking crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's why for a lot of people, and there's tons of like, transformational speakers, motivational speakers, therapies that have you get out of the city and go to nature, because nature is one of the only things that the magnitude of it actually trumps your brain and forces you to kind of recalibrate.
Do you think it almost shuts down a part of your brain that is keeping those emotions in check? Like, or is it or go ahead.
Go. No, sorry, Tyler. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's shut down, or maybe the input is so much that it's your brain is like, yeah, like you said, like malfunctioning in a way, and can't go to that process.
Well, the way that I saw it when I was there was like, yo, this kind of like magnitude comes up, and whatever comes up is supposed to be there, right? It's like, this has served you for quite a long amount of time, and it's looking to get out of here. It's looking to leave. It's looking to release. And most of the time when that happens, I go, well, why is this here? Or how do I get rid of this? Or like, I don't want to be feeling this. And really what that
Mm.
does is it just keeps it there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Instead of just being like, okay, I feel emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, let me just feel that emptiness right now. And the reason
Yeah.
why we allow that to happen is because of the knowing underneath it. And that's something that recently I've started to accept more and more and more profoundly, is that, you know, we look for wealth in the external instead of saying we are wealth. We look for health in the external, but we are health.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to be fit, so I'm going to go to the gym. Whereas, like, if you are fit, the gym is something you naturally do. If you
Yeah.
are healthy, eating right is something you naturally do. If you are strong, lifting heavy is something you naturally do. Instead of having to prove to yourself that I want to be strong, you are strong.
Right. So it's almost like it, like I think of like Superman in a way, right? So how does Superman become Superman? He takes off like the layer of Clark Kent. He doesn't become Superman. He is Superman.
It's a great point. It's a really, really good, profound point there, Tyler. Like, it's
That's why I
almost,
got my Clark Kent glasses on. We brought it full shades.
I want to punch those glasses so bad. Uh, just imagine, like, if Clark Kent got hit in the head and he forgot he was Superman.
Superman, right?
So all of a sudden he's walking along and he goes, "Oh no, a burning building! Let me get out of here!" And someone just goes, "Hey, wait a second, aren't you Superman?" He goes, "Nah, man, I'm Clark Kent. I don't know what you're talking about." Like, that's
Yeah,
us all the time.
yeah, we're Clark Kents with amnesia.
Yeah, that's literally what it is. And we just gotta, and to speaking to your point, is our job in life is to realize that we are Superman or Superwoman.
Right.
To me, that feels like really, really profound.
It feels good. It feels
Yeah,
open.
that
Feels
feels,
like I got an S on my chest.
yeah, right. Doesn't that feel like such a good place to be?
Mm-hmm.
And
Because then you don't have to do. It's like, all right, I just have to. So like, rather than going out and do, I just have to do like, and this is something that we've said pretty much in every podcast, is the internal work. The internal work is just like undoing those layers. So it's like taking off the glasses, it's taking off the jacket, it's taking off the fucking dress shirt, the tie. It's like all of those, like we could draw a comparison to each one of those articles of clothing as something we put on ourselves to protect ourselves, because like that's what we're taught from an early age. Like in order to survive, we have to put on these things to keep ourselves safe. But as we, as I've done this work myself and kind of dive in myself, I've become more and more comfortable in opening up and more confident that as long like the Tyler who I want to be is already there.
mm,
I'm getting in the way of that Tyler. So let me just like, what can I do to, and it's like, all right, what can I do? I don't have to do shit. The doing, and like, that's the issue. It's like, how do I let go without doing? And like, that's like the the rub that you run into, is because you're so programmed into like trying to become something, and you're trying to force it, and we like, this is what we were talking about last time, and it's like getting stuck in trying to be something or pretend to be something, where it's like allowing it and stepping back and reframing it. And it's like sometimes it's just something as simple as someone reframing it that you're like, oh, all right. And you have that moment of like, like that clarity, like we were just saying before. uh but and then you're like, then you start chasing that again, and then that's just like that stupid programming coming back in. But I feel like as I've been meditating more, because I think since last time we've talked, I've meditated pretty much every day. And going back this past Sunday, I was in my improv class, and like I was thinking back to our conversation, and like how I kept on like wanting to like talk my way around, and just like not allowing the authentic me to like shine through, because like I feel when I'm talking on the podcast, I have to talk a certain way because people are listening, and then that brings out that ego part of me and that achiever part of me and wanting to sound a certain way and be a certain way. And as soon as I was able to let go, then that part of me was able to shine through. So in my improv class, I was like, oh shit, this is the same thing. And like when you're doing a shitty improv scene, it's because you're trying to be funny. You're trying to force it. But when you like step back and just the first thing that feels natural to you, when you just connect with that and allow that to come through, that's when you do the best scenes, because the people watching can connect with you and see that like the authentic you is coming through. And I think all of us have our bullshit detectors on, and we're very good. Like, think about it. We have, how long have we had language? Like, before language, we had to figure our programming had to go on a way where we didn't need language and we could connect with one another. So like all that programming's already there. It's innate in us. And I think that's like when you're doing an improv scene, that you're not getting in the way and you're just allowing yourself to come through. Then the crowd is like, oh shit, this guy's on another level. Like, how is he doing this? He's not doing anything. He's just letting that part of him and he's connecting with that part of him or herself that that is like true to them and like what's speaking to them.
So it feels like I'm talking to a different person than who was here last week.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you feel that?
100%.
How does that feel for you?
It feels good. Like, and then there's also a part of me that's judging it, because it's like I wanted like this opportunity to have redemption this week after last week's poor performance, because like
Yeah.
that's the programming that I have to like overcome, is this constant judge and reflect and impact. And it's like I think it was drilled into me from like an early age with just sports. And then like, how did I do today? Well, I was like, this last week I was 3 for 3, and then this week I was 1 for 3. Or last game I had 8 tackles, but this week I only had 2 tackles, and you feel like shit. So you're always looking for that next moment to like redeem yourself. But it's like, it's all just bullshit, because you're just going to keep chasing the next one and keep chasing the next one. And it's like we were saying before, it's like Superman's right there. You just have to be able to sit down and connect. And once you know that Superman's always there, then that's when you start living with ease and everything can just flow easier, because you're not getting in the way.
And, to share with you, there is a part of me that comes up that's afraid of this, Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
Because this Tyler, like my ego says, okay, this Tyler is going to take the spotlight. This Tyler is capable. Like, I can't control this Tyler, but I know once I see that, then I have to reinforce who I really am and follow through with steps that prove to my nervous system that who I am is just love, just this moment, and strong. And my action, and from there is like, you are amazing. Like, I am so, so, so proud of you. And I am so grateful for the opportunity to, at this point in our lives, be able to share in a podcast and experiences with you. Like, that's really, really, really cool.
Yeah.
And like, I'm learning a ton of stuff from you right now, and that's awesome. Like, how cool is it for me to be able to, like, learning these things about connecting without language? Like, that's so cool. Like, what a great idea. Like, that's why when you see a shitty comedian on stage, you're like, I get what they're saying, but that's not that funny. And then your favorite comedian goes on and they just it flows through them. Right. And it's like the exact same like comedy, and you're like, oh, that's funny.
Right. Exactly. They're saying the same shit, but it's just connecting you with a totally different way, because that's home. It almost feels like home.
Yeah.
I think that feeling of like when you go home after, and it's like, and just that ease and that calmness like comes over you. Like, that's what I feel like when a good comedian or a good improv is flowing. You're just like, this is nice.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And then when we kind of fall out of it a little bit, I think my natural inclination goes, how do I get back there?
Yeah, exactly.
But again, I think going back to kind of pulling this full circle, and also kind of keeping this in terms of the time that we need to be able to do it. What was one of the big catalysts for you to find this level of flow?
I think it was our conversation last week, and then feeling that moment when I was able, like when I admitted to myself, when I admitted to you that like when you ask me these questions, I feel like I have to respond in a way that is intelligent.
Yep.
And
So to jump in there,
yeah,
what you're doing is, and so that obviously I pull this so that listeners can understand as well what's happening there, is you're trying to find intelligence through the external.
mm-hmm.
If I say the right thing, then I'll be intelligent.
Right.
What is the real statement now that you're in your heart?
I am intelligent.
Oh, I love that you said that, because that just proved the point, right? That just proved the point.
We are all these things. We are, we all, like, as like based down to the root of it. We are all like, this is like in the book I read, which is The Untethered Soul, and Eckhart Tolle says about it. It's like we are all God, and we have this godliness flowing through us. And you don't have to believe in God. And I'm actually not one. We weren't raised religious in a way, but I definitely believe
but spiritual
in spirituality and but I don't want to go down the woo woo route.
Yeah.
The woo woo route.
Yeah, you gotta hold these crystals and say these words.
No, but I do believe that. Think about it. Like, we're all made of fucking the same things that are made of stars. So there's definitely something to it. Like, even though it's challenging to quantify or have evidence with, I think that the way they put it so beautifully in their books, Untethered Soul and what's Eckhart Tolle's book, Awaken, or A New Earth,
the Power of Now, and then A New Earth. Yeah,
A New Earth. A New Earth. I basically read Untethered Soul and A New Earth back to back. And I guess the shame in it is that I had these great insight, but I didn't implement them consistently. So it's like you have that like moment where like, oh, this makes so much sense, and then you just fall back into life. And like, I think that's another valuable lesson for anyone listening, is like, you're going to have like this moment right now. Like, I only have this one moment, and this part that I'm sharing with you, Sean, or anyone who's listening. Like, I only have this one moment where I right now have this this peace of mind, right? Life could fucking smash me with something on Wednesday and I might lose my way. But I know that I have, within me to always go back to this, right? And like, I think that's life in a nutshell. Is like, you're going to be presented with problems. Shit is going to happen, right? And you can get upset about that. You could, scream that it's unfair, but the stories we tell ourselves can only take us so far. But I really do believe that everyone, like we said, everyone has that piece within them, and that Superman within them. And it's like going back and connecting with it. And you can call it Superman, you can call it spiritual, your spirit, whatever it is, but it's all like inside of us. It's just, you got to unwrap and get those layers out of the way in a way.
And it's about letting go of your misbeliefs and your disbeliefs. Because there's probably going to be some people who listen to this and they go, oh, well, that's funny for Sean and Tyler, but that's not me. The person or the place where that comes from is the place that prevents you from feeling that you are Superman or Superwoman.
Right.
And if you want to feel that, it's about you letting go of that disbelief. And to let go, it is to love that disbelief. Not love it as in, like, oh, I love that I'm broke. I love that my parents didn't love me. But the scared child inside of you that says, I'm not enough, that's what we love.
Mm-hmm.
And a great practice, and I think this is a good place to leave, is finding the people that trigger us and treating them in a way that is loving and compassionate. Because one of the reasons why relationships are so profound is because they're going to show us what we don't like in ourselves. And it gives us an opportunity to love ourselves in someone else. And that mirrors to us loving our darkness within ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And if I give you an example, is like someone today in my class, she kept being like, I can't do this. And like kind of making jokes and like belittle, like, you know, like, no, you know, like this is going to, like, it was a mile, a 2K row, 100 burpees mile run, you know? And for this person, it's going to be really challenging for them. They're like, you know, this is going to suck. I can't do it. I can't believe, why would you do this to me? Why are we doing this? Blah, blah. And it's kind of done in like this laughy kind of like way. And there's a part of me that goes, yo, shut the hell up and just do this.
Right.
Stop complaining. Stop being a little baby and let's go. And I didn't say that.
Right.
Because would you say that to a 5-year-old?
No.
So my response to her, and as she sat on the rower before, I came up to her and I took her like, you know, a high five kind of position in her hand. And I looked at her and I'm like, you're awesome just like this. I'm like, you're so awesome. And she smiled and she goes, thanks. Like, and it's almost like everybody in her life has told her or felt that when she's like that, she's undesirable. So the reason why that is still there is that no one, including herself, has ever accepted her in that way. Because the only way that everybody else wants to accept everybody else is the perfect way. And that's just not fucking real. No one in this world is perfect. So are we never going to have a relationship because people don't fit into our boxes? Or do we start loving people the way they are? And by doing that, we're loving all of the parts of ourselves. And in that process, we heal.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking to the moment, your part of you that was like, can you shut the fuck up? But I imagine there's a part of in you yourself that like you're going to do a shitty workout. And then what did you like? I don't really want to do this. And then what did Sean do? Tell that person inside your head, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Man the fuck up. And we're going to do this. Because I've said the same thing to myself. Right? Like, I'm like, all right, we've got, what's a horrible, the worst open workout ever. 27, 21, 15, 9 thrusters and row calories.
Yeah.
The worst workout I've ever done. You know, I didn't want to do it at all, but I told myself, man the fuck up. You got to prove something. You got to prove it to them.
Yeah.
Who the fuck are them? No one fucking cares. But it's like the psychological mind games like you needed in order to perform and get like that little bit extra out of you. But that'll work in the short term, but that is such a fucking terrible long-term game.
Yeah, because
it's never going to be enough.
Like think about being the child that way. How many times can you just tell a child to say shut the fuck up and suck it up before they're like, that doesn't work on me anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that's not enough for me.
Yeah.
And how much performance are we leaving on the table by basically resisting ourselves? Think about that. There is an enormous part of you when you go, no, I don't want to do this. This is going to suck. And then you counteract that. Now you're fighting yourself because it's not external. That doesn't exist in the real world. It's the internal world that goes on. So how much energy are you using by fighting yourself? I would be exhausted in my bed trying to go to sleep before like tough work. I would never sleep before an open workout. Never restfully. Even if I slept, I wasn't doing it. Why? Because I was fighting an internal battle the entire time.
Yeah.
And like, just imagine how powerful we are, like, and we can be if we were to actually embrace the dark and embrace the greatness that we are too. Because I think in some ways we're like, no, I'm not allowed to be great, which is why when we see other people great, it makes us feel uncomfortable and we go, they suck. They're just this. Blah, blah, blah. How about like, wow, I love them that way too. And guess what that does for us?
That allows us to be great.
Exactly. So, in terms of relationships in general, and again, that's why I go back to you stepping into your greatness. If I love your greatness, that means I'm allowed to be great.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's good.
And by the way, do you think that we could probably talk for another hour to 2 hours about this?
Oh, 100%. I could keep going for sure.
Exactly. If it weren't for time constraints, I would say the same. But how cool is it that content flows from this place effortlessly?
Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah, it's just like I keep going back to that moment we had last week where it was like so clarified in my head, and then like since that moment, over the past week, I've been reminded and reminded and reminded of like, just let your authentic self flow through. Let your authentic self flow through. What are you feeling in this moment? How are you feeling? It's like, just let it go. Don't push it down. Like, are you feeling confused? Are you feeling blocked off? Are you feeling like loving? Are you feeling like being it? And like, I think Marcus said, it's like, I know when I'm being resistant because I'm not being like, I know I need to go like meditate or do something because I'm not being like my laughy, goofy self, because like that's who like I ultimately want to be. And I think I'm very much in the same way. Like when I know that I'm there's something that's like stressing me out, like, and then like I'm trying to do the internal like resist and figure it out, like that was like another one that allowed me to, like, that was like, okay, that's the same conversation we had back on Thursday. So like all like podcasts and like just the improv class, like everything over the past week has spoke to the same point. And I think as both of us as coaches, we're always looking for how do we like break away and get down to like the like either like the lowest hanging fruit, or like how do we strip a movement down and make it as simple as possible. And like I think right now this is about as simple as I can make it in order to get into the state, in order to step into my higher self.
Turkey is an art.
Yeah.
That's a callback for those of you who don't know about that. I don't think anybody knows about that, but Tyler did an improv class, like 3 years ago or something like that?
It was musical improv.
Musical improv. Can't sing for dick, but it was pretty. Anyway, so I thought I would just throw that at you. And I completely agree with what you talked about, Tyler. And there's not really anything I can add on top of that right now, other than the fact that what I also will layer on top and supercharge what you're talking about is obviously staying with that belief. But one thing that you also mentioned that I want to point out is that you were spending a good amount of time meditating this last week also.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why meditation is so beautiful is that it allows you to be there for those parts of you that need to come up, because there's no distraction. So when you're sitting there meditating and a part of you says, we need to be doing something. Cool. All right. Now I get to spend some loving kindness on that part of me because it wants to leave. And then there's another part of you that goes, how long are we fucking sitting for? I have shit to do. That part gets some love and appreciation and kindness too. All of the parts of you that want to get up and leave, you're allowing them to leave, and it's your light of awareness and your love that allows that to happen. And in the process, you're reminding yourself that you really are none of those. You are the observer of it all, and you are this loving kindness, strength, awareness, awesomeness, greatness that sits behind it all and just observes it. And the times that we are feeling in resistance is when we've lost the ability to see the difference between our disbeliefs and who we really are.
That sums it up. That, and then when you're meditating, you're down regulating. You're going out of that like that fight or flight, and then can you really flow creatively if you're in that fight or flight state?
No. Well, think about it also this way in terms of your overall health. And this is why people go like, meditation's not for me. If you're saying meditation's not for me, and some people are going to be butthurt about this, meditation's for you.
Right.
Like, I thought it doesn't work for me. I sit down and I think too much, or I'm not getting anything out of this. The part of you that says, I'm not getting anything out of this, is the part of you that must die for you to reach a more authentic version of yourself.
Yeah. And I think I was listening to a podcast yesterday about it, and she says, like, when you're meditating, you're saying it's not for you. It's more than likely you might be tying like some type of financial benefit to it. So it's just like, I could be spending this 20 minutes like doing something that could be making me money right now. So I'm like, I'm losing money by meditating. But if you were to meditate consistently, I imagine how much more thoughtful and how much easier your work would flow if you were able to have those moments of clarity and downregulate and de-stress.
Yeah, if you don't have enough money to meditate, you don't have enough money to not meditate.
Right. Or if you have too much money or something, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like the golden. I've heard of this used a few times, which is fantastic. It's called the golden handcuffs.
Yeah. Well, you can't. I actually I never heard of it. I had a client. He was like, "Yeah, I can't leave my job because if I stay there another 6 years, I'm set. So I just got to be miserable for another 6 years."
And
Sick.
all they can see is what they've done before. So by default, there's no way they're present, because if they were present, they'd be like, "Oh, this airplane is going down, but I paid for first class, so I'm not going to leave the plane that's about to crash to the side of a fucking mountain." Right?
That's a good one.
Right? I got first class upgrade, so I'm going to stay on this plane for another 6 years as it crashes into the ground, and I lose all that. Or you can use that as, wow, I just got, say this, their 6 extra years would get them $100,000. I just got $100,000 lesson.
Yeah.
$100,000 lesson. How many people in this world can say they got a lesson for $100,000 or $1 million? Because that $100,000 lesson or that $1 million lesson potentially could grow into $10 million, or it can give you something that is more valuable than anything, especially as you grow older, and that is time. How much money will you give up on the last days of your life, or would you give to get a little bit more time?
A little bit more time, and then also time that you can actually enjoy.
Yes, and the energy
time.
and the mindset and the position to be resourceful with that time.
Right.
And
all right.
Yeah.
Let's before we go down another rabbit hole, I know you got to go.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk for a little bit while longer, but I think you have a personal training client as well, though, right?
No, actually, I could keep going for I could go for another few minutes, but because
what's your heart out? Because like I said, man, I can scat all day.
Heart out. Let's call it. Let's go another 10 minutes.
Okay, so I'll clip
240. So it's 2:32. So let's go another 8 minutes.
Okay. It's funny because there's something that came up to me like, oh, I can't do that much longer. I love that part of me. Like, I'm going to be with that part of me. That thing that says like, oh, you didn't realize you just went for an hour and 17 minutes already. 8 minutes you can't do. Right?
Right.
And I'm also loving the part of me that doesn't feel completely right now. Like, this isn't exactly how it should feel. I want this to be better. And I'm aware of that piece of me right now.
Right. And then there's a part of me that's like, oh, we've crushed it this past. We're going to fucking burn it down in these last 8 minutes. We bit off too much more than we can chew.
Yeah. And guess what we can do from there is we can go, hey, what are some possibilities? We're going to do 8 minutes straight of possibilities back and forth to each other. I'm going to go for you first. And this is possibilities in the next year. I'm going to go with you, and then you're going to go to me. And if you want to stop and supercharge one, you could stop and supercharge one. How's that sound?
Well, I was going to talk about something else, real quick because
go.
We were talking because like you were saying, you don't have a client, you have a client coming up, and I was going to say, actually, I don't. And, I think it was a perfect week for me to have, that conversation the past week, because I think this be for me. A lot of my clients are out this week. So I would say normally in a week, I do anywhere from 20 to 30 sessions.
Yeah.
And then this week, I'll be lucky if I hit 10. And I still have a lot of this shit coming up. Like, oh my gosh, I'm moving into this new apartment in a month. It's going to be stretching my bank account a little bit more. And all of like that financial scarcity has like been coming up this week. And I think if I wasn't in a position where I was meditating consistently, it would definitely eat at me deeper and stress me out more. But I actually like reframed it and was like, you know what? This is like perfect. I was planning on visiting Sean this week anyway for his birthday, first off. So I probably wasn't even going to work this week anyway. So like let's have this be like Tyler's self-care week where, I have a lot more time on my plate so I can meditate a little bit more. I can focus more on the program that I'm doing, Online Coach Accelerator. I can do more focus on that. So it just allowed me to completely reframe it where I think, and don't get me wrong, this shit's still coming up. Like I like, oh, I only did 2 sessions today, and like that feeling of financial insecurity, that close offness, that pain, not pain, but like that tightening of my solar plexus, or the inability to talk in the back of my throat, it comes up a little bit. But it's like knowing that like a year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Tyler, who was in Port Jeff, like barely scraping by, that would have fucking ruled my world, and that's all I would have been focused on. So just like having that knowledge of the growth that's taking place and giving me that perspective has been really nice. More open.
I love it. And even though I was distracted by my roommate coming in just now, I still love it because I'm allowed to give that space too. And there is a place of me that says, oh, you're forcing this, Sean. And that place isn't me. That's another judgment. That's another thing that for me, I am just becoming aware of now, is that when I do say this is who I want to be, there is a judge of, no, you can't be that. You're not allowed to be that. Who says you can do that?
Yeah.
Right?
I think, yeah. So what do you think and we've got 4 more minutes. So this would be a pretty deep question because so when I went to training camp for the soul, some big limiting beliefs that I had were I'm not enough, I'm stupid, I need people to love me. What are some like big limiting beliefs that you think are consistent? Is there similarities in our limiting beliefs?
I think.
Do you have any things that you think are more specific to you?
Yes, but I will also, something that comes up is that these limiting beliefs are not ours alone. They're collective.
Okay.
Right? So when people say I am not enough, if you were to like raise your hand right now in the audience, if you think that there's a part of you that says you're not enough, and you guarantee 95% of people would put their hand up, right?
Yeah. Or I'm not able.
I'm not able. I am not enough. Yeah. I am weak. Yeah. I am incapable of love. I'm incapable of receiving love. Those are all of my disbeliefs. And it's interesting, when I allow those things to be there, they start to give me a feeling. Right? Uh-huh. And the funny thing is, it's like, oh no, they're giving me a feeling.
Because that gives them like almost like truth to them if they're giving you a feeling.
Well, think about it this way, because a lot of people go, well, when I say that, I start to feel bad. What does that mean, feeling bad?
That's the problem, is that we attach good and bad to everything.
Yeah. So what if you have to feel that icky feeling in your stomach and chest for that thing to leave, Sean? You know, what if by saying I suck and I'm not enough and all those things, because everybody, when they say that, they go, oh man, it makes me feel bad. And then someone comes along and like, yeah, but you're great and you're awesome.
I'm like, yeah.
Does that really make you feel better?
Oh, like in that moment?
Never.
It depends. Well, it also depends on
who it is,
and
so basically
what they're going through.
Yep. And it hinges on someone else's perception of you.
Yeah. Like who it is. Like if it's like the person you were seeking validation from all your life.
And now you just got an attachment to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, so that if you're wondering why, and for me, I know there's a lot of people in my past where I'm like, if I could have just pleased them, I would have been so happy and I would have been enough. Right?
Yeah.
You know who the best people in the world, and this is obviously something that it's more cerebral right now, but I'm falling more into, is the most valuable people in the world are the ones who come up to you when you are feeling like shit and they go, I love you, even when you're feeling like shit. I love you when you're happy. I love you when you're in resistance. I love you unconditionally, because the people who are trying to cheer you up when you are sad most likely are either misguided, because like, oh, what do you should do when someone's sad? Cheer them up.
Right.
You know, think
Right.
about what they say in kindergarten. If you see a friend and he's crying, put your arm around him. And if you're don't be sad, be happy. Now what have we done? We've created a judgment about being sad. And now anytime that we have an emotion that comes up that makes us feel sad, we now have to then do something to get rid of that. And in some ways, it's, okay, let me do something else. You know what makes me feel happy? Playing football. And then you play football for the next 15 years of your life, and then you can't play football anymore, and you go, oh, no, what makes me feel happy now? Right? And you're like, oh, gambling makes me feel happy now, because when I'm gambling, I don't feel that icky feeling of like, oh, man, I suck. I don't feel like I'm good. You know what? When that comes up, and this is my challenge to myself, is I'm no longer going to self-talk myself out of something. If I think I suck, I'm going to feel that, because it's not freaking real.
All right.
That's not me. I was never me. The only thing that I am is the observer of it all. And if I allow that to be there and I embrace it and I let it go, it's never allowed to on that level of awareness to overtake me again, because now it's almost like the antibodies in your body have like killed that bacteria, and there's always those memory cells that are there. So every time it comes in, it goes, hey, whoa, easy, buddy, get the F out of here. You know what I'm saying? That's what happens almost when you sit with it and you allow the sadness to be there, or you allow the discomfort to be there, the icky feelings, allow them to be there. You are the awareness behind it. You are you are just love. You are just this moment. And when you allow that to be there, and it finally goes, you're left with this clarity, this freedom, this space, but then you're left with your memory cells that allow you those things to never dupe you again on that level. Now, there might be deeper levels from there, but all that's going to do is allow you to access more and more profound and authentic versions of yourself.
That's right.
Tyler, how can we reach you?
You could reach me at, you go to tflofitness.com. You can go to T_FLO_fitness on Instagram. And I think those are the two best ways.
You can get me at Sean@CrossFitDelrabeach.com. That's my email, Sean@CrossFitDelrabeach.com. You can also go to my website, flockfitness.com. Get me on Instagram, flockfitness, and I will be having more and more content coming out in the next few months and that kind of stuff. Right now, I'm doing a fitness and wellness challenge and doing lacrosse season, so I'm going to prioritize my time there. I'm going to allow myself to prioritize my time there, because I'm coming up with profound and beautiful things through those experiences. And I know after the season's over, that's when I'm going to be able to shift gears and create more and more beautiful content, be able to share and shift the world in my own way. Tyler?
Ooh, share and shift the world. That's a good one.
Share and shift the world, because jerky is an art. Tyler, I love you, buddy. I'll talk to you next week.
Love you. Talk to you next week.
All right, bye.